Say hello. I guess he's 85. We all up with about 6 years. I want to go see that person. But it was, I never knew that.
Front nine is pretty easy. It's not easy.
Where is the front?
Across the street. So, yeah, because I also try to play this way. So I don't know how you talk about it. Yeah. We're going to Hobart.
Ayanum shomrecha. Hine lo yanum velo yishan. Shomer, shomer Yisrael. Adonai shomrecha. Adonai tzilcha al yad yeminecha. Adonai shomrecha. Adonai tzilcha al yad yeminecha. Adonai yishmorcha mikol ra. Yishmor et nafshecha. Yomam hashemesh lo yakeka ve'yareach balayla. Adonai yishmor tzedcha uvoecha me'ata ve'ad olam. Adonai yishmor tzedcha uvoecha me'ata ve'ad olam. Al mekomo yavo v'shalom. Our tradition is to begin with a psalm. We choose Psalm 121, which is known as Shir LaMa'alot, a song for those who ascend. I turn my eyes to the mountains, from where will my help come? My help comes from Adonai, from God, maker of heaven and earth. God will not let your foot give way, your guardian will not slumber. You see, the guardian of Israel neither slumbers nor sleeps. God is your protection, your guardian at your right hand. By day the sun will not strike you, nor the moon by night. God will guard you from all harm. God will guard your life. God guards your going and coming, now and forever. May Ron Polinsky go unto God in peace. Hatzur tamim palo kichol dracha mishpat el emunah ve'enav el tzadik v'yashar hu tzadik atah Adonai la'amidu lahachayot asher biyadcha pigadon kol ruchot chalila lecha zichroneinu limchot v'yihu na'einecha v'rachamim aleinu fekuchot ki lecha Adon harachamim ve'aslichot. Adonai natan v'Adonai lakach yehi shem Adonai mevorach. והוא רחום יכפר עוון ולא ישחית, והרבה להשיב אפו וירקו חמתו וישוב העפר על הארץ שהיה, והרוח תשוב אל האלוהים אשר נתנה. dust returns to the earth as it was, but the spirit returns to God who gave it. May our beloved soul be bound up in the bond of life eternal. May God send comfort to those who mourn and grant strength to those whose burden is sorrow. Thank you, everyone. Thank you, everyone, for being here, for coming, whether you're with us here at the cemetery or if you've joined us online for the broadcast of this service. Thank you for being here and for joining your hearts together with ours as we honor and pay tribute to Ronald Polinsky. But my Baba, who's just a few months older than he was, said there is no Ron or Ronald Polinsky. It was Ruby. Everyone who knew him called him Ruby. It comes from his Hebrew name, Ruvain. Ruvain ben Shlomo ve'Edel, the son of Sam and Ida Polinsky. Zichronam livracha, of blessed memory. Ruby passed away Sunday evening, the 27th day in the Hebrew month of Tammuz. He was 94. He is survived by his family, his children, Sandra and Walter, Max and Donna, his grandchildren, Daniel and Allie, Amy and Johnny, Mia and Julian, Mark and Devin, Paul and Katie, to whom he was their beloved Zedek, his great-grandson Eli, by nieces and nephews, great-nieces and great-nephews, with a special mention to his nephew Martin. Ruby was predeceased by his parents, Ida and Sam, by his wife of 65 years, Phyllis, and by his siblings, David and Bloomy, all of blessed memory. Just moments before I had the opportunity to visit Ruby's room Friday afternoon before Shabbat at Simkin Center, I don't believe in coincidences, but just as I was making my way, the security guard there stopped me and asked me if I knew a song, a famous Hebrew song by the Israeli singer Chava Alberstein. The song is called Mi Ha'ish, and its lyrics are taken right from the Bible, right from another selection in the Psalms, from Psalm 34. Mi Ha'ish hachafetz chaim. That's how the lyrics begin in Hebrew. In English, who is the man who desires life, who loves all his days to see good? Guard your tongue from evil and your lips from deceitful speech. Turn away from evil and do good. Seek peace and pursue it. I couldn't believe that just as I was making my way down to visit Ruby for the last time, that this and these words would be what that fellow brought to my attention. How fitting. Because these words could have very much been written specifically about Ronald Ruby Polinsky. But we can add to them as well. Because when it comes to him, there was so much more that needs to be said. And in a few moments, we will have the privilege and the opportunity to hear from his son Max and a eulogy in honor of his father. But as I said, let's add a few words by way of introduction. A man with a pure and sincere heart, which everybody knew and felt. A man free from judgment and ulterior motives. A man who, to say he was kind, would be an understatement. Kindness fueled everything Ruby did. Grand gestures down to the simplest, smallest action. It was just the level at which he operated. A man whose response to any request of him or his time was immediate. Sure, but what else can I do for you? A man who wore his heart on his sleeve, but unself-consciously, who wasn't afraid to be empathetic, sensitive, affectionate, and loving, truly ahead of his time. A man who cherished his friendships and let everyone know it, always keeping his friends close, speaking with them regularly, telling them. People Ruby loved knew how he felt about them. He was just someone who loved people. No matter who you were, someone passing by on the street, one of the countless workers from city machinery, or one of the greatest athletes all time, Muhammad Ali, whom he met in an elevator and was so awestruck that he accidentally called Cassius Clay and couldn't sleep for the rest of the night because he called Muhammad Ali by his old name. A man who had curiosity for the world, who loved music, sports, travel, and food. A man who sought out holes in the wall all over the world, like places in Hawaii to get poke down at the docks. Hawaii, of course, was Ruby and Phyllis's special place for 40 years, beginning in 1974. Places where he would take his grandkids, 4 years old, 5 years old, in the early 90s. Now it seems commonplace, but at the time, he just wanted to share all of the wonderful things he discovered through his curiosity in the world. A man who thrived in business because for him business was about relationships, an opportunity to meet people who worked at city machinery, people that he met from overseas who would come to Winnipeg on business, and ordinarily you'd think, let's take those people out to a fancy dinner, but no, he'd invite them to his home. Friday night, with visitors from Japan. This happened so often it became commonplace, though it certainly wasn't. A man who in business was honest, trustworthy, and fair, and everybody knew it. But also a man who was tenacious. Anyone here who was ever called on the phone, perhaps after dinner, by Ruby Polinsky canvassing for UJA, knew that you were donating whether you liked it or not. Just to get him off the phone and stop feeling guilty about the fact that he knew you should be donating. He was tenacious. When he had an idea in his head, something he wanted to accomplish, he would not quit. And yet above all, he was about love. As one of his grandsons put it, so I'm told, Ruby knew his own father, Sam, who died tragically when Ruby was just in his early 20s. He said he knew his father loved him very much, and he was determined to share that love with his family, to pass it down to his children and grandchildren. A love that should be spoken about, should be obvious, should be shown and felt. That love which he passed through the Polinsky clan and the extended family is an intergenerational blessing that will endure far beyond his time on earth. There's a teaching in the Talmud from Rabbi Yochanan, who claimed our father Jacob is not dead, to which he was countered by another rabbi, Rabbi Nachman. But didn't we mourn for Jacob, prepare him for eternal rest, and bury him? And Rabbi Yochanan replied, as Jacob's children are alive, so too is he alive. The gift of Ruby Polinsky for over 94 years is just like the gift of our patriarch Jacob. And as the stories about him are told, as the memories are shared, the lives that he touched continue on, so too does he stay alive, and especially the love that he gave, that he shared, will continue to be that blessing through all and to all who knew him. Some may say that Ruby Polinsky had 9 lives. There are stories that everything could have ended a long, long time ago. The time he tried to walk from his childhood home on Burroughs, not far from here, across the river to visit family on the other side, and he slipped through the ice. The time he was hit by a car crossing Main Street and his glasses ended up on the other side of the street. The plane crash Max will reference in his eulogy. But he made it, as if someone were looking out for him, because the world would just not benefit the way it did from all of the years, the decades that Ruby Polinsky was in it. Goodness followed him throughout his life, He never took it for granted, and he always paid it forward. From the little girl who sat with him as he explained patiently the finer points of the sport of golf, to his grandkids who would visit from Vancouver and be made to feel so important as he would tour them around town, introduce them to people at work or at Glendale, to the person who shared a locker with him at the golf club, who ended up in the hospital for a procedure, someone he didn't know so well, but whom he would visit. He made impressions on everyone he knew throughout his life. How lucky are we for his 9 lives, for his life and for his love. What a gift. May Ronald Ruby Polinsky rest in peace. Now it's an honor to call up Max, his son, to deliver a eulogy.
I don't know where to look, but hi, I'm Max Polinsky. I'm here to speak a few words about my father Ronald, more affectionately known as Ruby to most. We all know one day this day is going to come. And as much as you know it, you're never really ready. As my dad's son, I have inherited some of his traits, one of which is his emotionality. For most of you who knew Dad, I don't really have to talk about him all that much, because all of you really did know him. The love, empathy, and caring he had for all his family and friends, sadly, most of whom are all gone. He was always one to lend a helping hand when needed to anyone who asked, generous to his core. I will try to give my perspective to who he was and what he meant to me. I know my dad wouldn't want me to talk about his achievements because he didn't consider anything he did out of the ordinary. He did run a long-standing business, City Machinery, with his brother Dave that my grandfather started in 1921. Dad was on the board of directors of Rabah School, Winnipeg Symphony, a member of the Rotary Club, and several Jewish agencies, a tireless fundraiser for many Jewish causes and the state of Israel. My father had no ego. Truly, never took the spotlight or wanted credit for anything. He did things from the goodness of his heart, always caring, always trying to help. Dad didn't mentor me or guide me with words of wisdom, but he did by his actions about how you treat people. He was like an angel looking over all of us, the one who laid the foundation for not only my generation, but for his grandchildren, and now his great-grandchild Eli. It's all in our DNA. When I think of Dad, the first thing that comes to mind was how lucky I was, and how lucky we all were to have him here for the extra 59 years post his plane crash, July 22nd, 1964, when I was 6. 2 gentlemen didn't make it that day. This was always the hardest part. Two gentlemen didn't make it that day, leaving behind young families. We've always spoke about how lucky he was, and he was. But we were the lucky ones that he survived to show us how to properly live your life and be a good person. A pretty tough act to follow. Dad had many passions, and he was a pioneer in many ways. He had an adventuresome side to him that led him to travel to places far and wide, going to the Orient, then to China, before it was even recognized by the Western world. I have a lot of things to thank him for. A house full of magazines to read from the time I could read. Time, Newsweek, Life, Look, most importantly, Sports Illustrated and Sporting News. the World Book 1964 edition, which I actually did read. He had a love for food, mainly ethnic food, that he also passed on to all of us. He was always searching for the latest and greatest new restaurants, mainly Asian. He was a boater all his life, on the lake the whole day, burning 3 tanks of gas. He had 2 major passions, though, that stood above the others. Golf. He would recount every shot he took in a round of golf on the phone with Dave Kaufman. That might be the one thing about him that I never understood, and which I'm told his father never understood either. The other passion he had was jazz, which started in his teen years, learning trumpet by ear. He couldn't read a note. We have pictures with Ruby and Harold Fleisch playing together in a jazz band from back in the day. Later in life, he went on many jazz cruises and had so many very late nights listening to jazz with my mom and Izzy and Babs. Finally, his other passion was my mom, Phyllis. I'm not sure if it was Daniel or Amy who asked him not that long ago where he met Rabah. He told them he was sitting in a car on Main Street in front of Colecus when he saw her. He asked whoever he was with, "Who is that girl?" The rest is history. They were inseparable from that point on. They were likely 16 or 17 at that time. I want to conclude by thanking both Tess Patilla and Hilda Perez for the loving care they gave my dad. Not only my dad, but his siblings, Dave and Bloomie. I know he appreciated and felt gratitude to both of you. Also want to thank my cousin Martin Simmons, the most devoted nephew an uncle could have. Dad, rest in peace. We'll all miss you dearly.
Thank you, Max. A beautiful eulogy. It's now my honor to chant the El Malei Rachamim, the traditional Jewish memorial prayer, in honor of Ruby Polinsky. El Malei Rachamim, Shochein Bameromim, Hamsei Menucha Nechona, Tachat Kanfei Hashchina B'malot Kedoshim Uteorim Kizohar Arakia Mazirim En Nishmat Reuven Ben Shlomo Vedel She'alach Le'olamo Megan Edente Menuchato Hanabal Harachamim Hasti Reu Beseter Kenafecha Leolamim Utzror Vitzror Achaim Enishmato Adonai Hu Nachalato V'yanuach b'shalom al mishkavo v'nomar Amen. Exalted, compassionate God, grant infinite rest in your sheltering presence among the holy and the pure to the soul of Ronald Ruby Polinsky, son of Sam and Ida, who has gone to his eternal home. Merciful One, we ask that he find perfect peace in your eternal embrace. May his soul be bound up in the bond of life. May he rest in peace. And let us say, Amen. Thank you again to everyone who is here, for being with us, for everyone again who has tuned in. We encourage you to continue to reach out to Ruby's family with your messages, phone calls, texts, emails, continuing to share stories, some of the stories we've heard today, more that are surely to come today and in the weeks and months to follow, as we both remember and honor him, but also turn our attention to comforting his family, who have now entered the difficult time of grief, a time of mourning. To them we offer the words of our tradition, Hamakom yinachem etchem betosha arev elei Tzion v'Yerushalayim. May you be comforted and consoled among all those who are or who have ever been in mourning in our community. Speaking of that, there will be a meal of consolation following this service at Max and Donna's home, 184 Oxford Street. That is also where Shiva will be observed by the family for this evening only, between the hours of 7 and 9. Again, the address, 184 Oxford Street. In a moment, we'll conclude our service with a recitation of the Mourner's Kaddish and then the familiar Jewish ritual of shoveling earth into the grave. The family will lead us, but everyone here is invited to participate. A few words about the logistics, the mechanics. You'll see that there are multiple shovels and people can line up on both sides. There are different customs in different cemeteries around the world. Most people pour 3 shovelfuls of earth, but some people use the front of the shovel while some people use the back. Some people will pass the shovel to the next person, while others, as if reluctant to pass on what feels like a burden, will return the shovel to the earth. Whatever the custom with which you are familiar, I always say is the custom you should embrace. The rituals in our life should have meaning behind them, should resonate with us. And so, again, the custom that makes sense, that speaks to you, is one you should embrace. If you want to participate but are unsure about using a big shovel, you may not be able to see it depending on where you are, but just in front of the headstone, where I'm kind of pointing, there's a bucket with a small shovel and sand, and you can use that and pour 3 shovelfuls of sand in and complete this mitzvah as well. A mitzvah in our tradition, a commandment, but more than that, a selfless act we do without any hope of any reward. In Jewish tradition, the highest form of respect we can show someone is to accompany him to his final resting place. And that extends not just to showing up, but to participate in burying. Because we believe in our tradition that our loved ones deserve to be buried by us, by our own hands. Hands that once held their hands. And so again, after the family leads us, everyone is invited to participate. And we recognize it can be a painful act, but we remind ourselves, not only is it a mitzvah, it is an act born of love and compassion for someone who deserves it. Someone who meant so much clearly to so many people. I often say that one of the kind of ironic things that happens as you live into your 90s, quite often you outlive a lot of family, you outlive a lot of friends, and when your time comes, there may not be a lot of people at your funeral service. But just looking around, it gives you an idea of the intergenerational love, the blessing that we spoke of earlier, the fact that so many of you are here. Maybe not necessarily directly friends, but friends of kids, friends of grandkids, neighbors, people who share memories from the beach or from Hawaii or from work or from golf or jazz or all of it. So thank you again, everyone, for being here. We said it at the beginning of the service, and we say it in conclusion now. It's words from Job, the epitome of suffering in Jewish tradition. Adonai natan v'Adonai lakach, Yishem Adonai mevarach. God has given, God has taken, blessed be the name of God. May Ruby Polinsky's memory be a blessing, as we mark that his essence will never leave our hearts and our souls. The Mourner's Kaddish. Yitgadal v'yitgadash shemei Rabah, be'alma divra chirutei v'yamlich malchutei, v'chayechon uv'yomechon uv'chayei d'chol beit Yisrael, ba'agala uv'izman kari v'imru amen. Yehi Shmei Rabah Mevorach Le'olam Ulamei Almayah. Yitbarach, Vishtabach, Vitpa'ar, Vitromam, Vitnaseh. Vitadar, Vitalev, Vitalal, Shemei Dekudsha, Barichu. Le'ela min kol birchata v'shirata, tushbechata v'nechemata, da'amiran be'alma, v'imru, Amen. Yehi shlama Rabah min Shemaya, v'chaim aleinu v'al kol Yisrael, v'imru, Amen. Oseh shalom bimromav, hu ya'aseh shalom, aleinu v'al kol Yisrael, v'imru, Amen. May the one who creates peace and harmony on high bring peace and harmony to us, to all Israel, and to all humanity, as again, together we say, Amen. Thank you again, everyone, and I invite the family to come forward and to lead us.
Very careful. Susan. That's with the Caribbean. We throw so fast around the corner and that goes over. And then we like to as soon as we the bean bars have a big one line. So just very tipping over. Yeah, that's where it was. Yeah. So that's where he turned it to some other sheet.